The 3040s were a strangely relaxed period for first Prince Hanse Davion, alternatively tending to his family, the affairs of his nation, and his own schemes for the next conflict that will allow him to defeat the Draconis Combine for good. Aside for a few border raids, the situation in the Inner Sphere seemed to be heading towards another period of low-level engagements. All the while their institutions were rediscovering lost technologies dating back from the Star League. Now ruling jointly with his wife, the Federated Commonwealth, Hanse Davion was also preparing his descendants concerning their aspirations and obligations within the Steiner Davion dynasty as they were finishing their formative years. However, all those plans went to smoke as everything was turned upside down by the clan invasion. Caught off guard by the quick-paced offensive, Hanse Davion did his best to redeploy any and all available troops to the Lyran side of his vast empire. An urgency quadrupled with recent news that his first son and heir to the throne, Victor Steiner Davion, was reported being killed by the invaders from beyond the periphery. Although it was soon proven that Victor had been evacuated in time and thus the worst was averted, reports still came in filled with staggering losses to some levels not seen since the early succession wars, and Hanse has to maintain the pace of his hard work, at barely stemming an offensive made by an unknown enemy with capabilities and technologies far superior to anything his FedCom could produce at the time. However, events took an unexpected turn when Colonel James Wolfe of the Wolf Dragoons invited all House Lords on outreach to reveal the origins of the invaders, those of his own mercenary unit, and the fact that every interstellar nations of the Inner Sphere needed to band together to fight this threat or be conquered. Although the results of the outreach meeting were quite mixed, as he had to dwarf several times the intrigues of Chancellor Romano Liao and forced Captain General Thomas Marek to contribute more to the war efforts in exchange for treatment to his own son Joshua for leukemia at the NAIS itself. First Prince Hanse Davion was also able to meet Prince Theodore Kurita and recognize a kindred spirit, with an assessment of the military situation similar to his own. Beyond the strained interrelationships between their respective offsprings during the meeting, Hanse and Theodore concluded a non-aggression pact to facilitate their military focus primarily against the clan invaders. This agreement thus allowed Hanse Davion to deploy more RCT units previously guarding the Kuritan border to bolster his own flank and provide better odds for his FedCom units to fight both the Jade Falcons and Steel Vipers. When he learned of the impending threat to Luthien, capital of the Draconis Combine, Hanse Davion was able to look beyond his old grudges against his arch-nemesis and recognize that if the Combine was defeated too quickly, his own nation will find itself unable to counter the clans on such a widespread front. With this realization in mind, he swiftly enlisted the Wolf Dragoons and Calhoun mercenary units to quickly travel and assist House Kurita for the Battle of Luthien in 3051. Once again, he was later warned of Primus Mindo Waterley's schemes about Operation Scorpion and thus was able to respond in time to counter Comstar's ambitions at imposing an interdiction across the entire Inner Sphere in a bid to rule over all of them. Despite these reversals of fortune that went to his advantage and the military successes of his son Victor in those trying times, the general war against the clan invaders was a burden that slowly killed First Prince Hanse Davion, being overworked beyond more than a single year, protecting the best he can his nation. Because of the precarious situation, even if some glimmer of hope was emerging with the establishment of the Tukahid truce, Hanse Davion was totally unprepared when he received a private message from the newly appointed Chancellor of the Capelan Confederation, Sun Tzu Liao, announcing his upcoming marriage to Isis Marik, second in line to the Free Worlds League. The immense shock of the announcement, with its far-reaching political implications for the inner sphere, caused Hanse Davion to suffer a severe heart attack. Despite Victor's discovery of his condition inside his personal office and attempts to revive him by the team of doctors within the royal palace, Hanse Davion died in his eldest son's arms on 17th of June 3052.